All right, so in this video, we're going to look at basic typography in Bootstrap and also just take a look at some of the default styling. So I have 2_2 basic typography open in the sandbox. You can see I have the whole sandbox open here in the sidebar. And I'm running this in live server. So if you're in VS Code, you can just go open with live server, or down here, if it says go live, you can click that. So by default, Bootstrap adds a bunch of styling. If I were to just get rid of the Bootstrap link here, the CSS link, you'll see that it goes back to just default HTML. The font sizes are different, the fonts, the line height, the margin and padding, all that stuff. So let's put that back. And if we were to open up our dev tools, so in Chrome, you can go to more tools and then developer tools, or you can hit F12, or on a Mac I think it's Command Option I, and you can see the HTML here and then the CSS down here. So if we were to select, let's say, this H1 by clicking the selector or the inspect icon here and then click on H1, and we go down here, you'll see that the font size is 2.5 rem. Now, if you're not familiar with rem units or m units, they're basically multipliers. So by default, the core HTML tag, like this right here, its font size is 16 pixels. So 1 rem would be 16 pixels. It would be equal to whatever that's set to. 2 rem would be 32 because it would be 16 pixels times 32. All right, and in this case, it would be 16 pixels times 2.5. So over here, we can actually see what that is in pixels, which is 40. All right, and I'm not going to go too deep into rems and ems. Ems, so EMs, if you see that's basically the same thing, except it's not going by the HTML element. It's going by whatever the parent element font size is. All right, so if it had a parent with a font size of 20, then 1M would be 20 pixels. Okay, and I do have a YouTube video on my Traversy Media channel where I go over rems and ems in depth. So, and that's one of the biggest differences between Bootstrap 3 and 4 is they used more rem and m units, which overall makes it more responsive. So anyways, not to go too much into that, let's go down to where it says start here. And for these headings, you can see what they look like by default. Now, if we wanted to, let's say, keep the markup of having an H5, which is this one here, but have it the size of an H1, we could easily do that by adding a class of H1. So if I save that, now the H5, as far as semantics go, it's an H5, but it looks like an H1. And if I were to open up my dev tools here and click on it, you'll see class H1 in the HTML, and then down here, there's the class H1 along with the standard H1, which is 2.5 rem. Okay, and you can, of course, make this an H2 if you wanted to use that size or whatever, H1 through H6. All right, now these display headings here, or display classes, they're used to make the headings a little more prominent. They're great for like showcase areas or hero blocks, things like that. So what I'm going to do is give this H1 a class of display-1 and save. And notice that it gets much bigger. If we take a look here, down here you'll see the font size is now 6 rem. Okay, so it gets much bigger. The font weight is 300 and the line height is 1.2. So it adds those changes to it. And that's the biggest one, but we do have display 2. And we also have display 3 and display 4. All right, so if I save that, you'll see the different sizes. Okay, it gives it a skinnier font, but or skinnier looking weight, and then makes it much bigger. All right, so paragraphs, this is what paragraphs look like by default. Now, if you wanted to make a paragraph more prominent, you could add the lead class. So if we go ahead and add lead like that and save, and if we were to take a look here at what the lead includes, it makes the font size 1.25 rem. It also increases the font weight. All right, and by default, paragraphs have a margin bottom of 1 rem. Okay, so if we keep going down here, monospace paragraph, if you wanted to give it a monospace look, we could give it a class of text dash monospace and save, and you'll see here it gives it that mono look. Style classes, so if we wanted to bold text, we could say font weight bold and save. So this allows us to make the text look bold, but not actually have to add, you know, strong tags and change the markup. So that's really the point of that. Same thing with normal. If by default it was bold, then and you wanted to keep the strong tags, you could say font weight dash normal. And of course, that's going to just stay normal. If you wanted to make it italicized, you could do font italic and save, and you'll see now it's italic. We can also do text transforms. So this uppercase paragraph here, if we wanted to make it lowercase, we could say text lowercase and save, and you'll see that now it's lowercase. If we wanted to make it uppercase, you probably guessed it, it's going to be text uppercase and save, and that will make it all uppercase. And then we also have capitalize, text capitalize, and what that does is it makes every word, it makes the first character uppercase. All right, so we also have block quotes. So here we have a block quote. We want to add a class here of block quote, and this will just make it a little more prominent, so it's bigger, it's bolder. And if we wanted to align it to the right, like a lot of block quotes are, we could say class block quote, and we could say text dash right and save, and now you'll see it's aligned to the right. We can also have block quotes with footers. So if we say class block quote, let's also do text right. And then notice here we have a footer tag, HTML5 footer tag, and then we have a cite. So if you wanted to cite a resource, you could do that. But for the footer, we want to give it a class of block quote dash footer. Okay, so that'll give you this look here. Now, if we wanted to truncate text to one line, so you can see we have a bunch of, we have a long paragraph here. Let's say we wanted to just truncate it to one line. We could do class equals text dash truncate and save. And now notice it's one line. It also adds these 3 dots on the end. So for lists, we're not going to get into list groups or anything like that yet. We're going to do that in a little bit. But by default, ULs have padding, and they also have these bullet points. If you wanted to remove this pretty easily, you could just add a class of list dash unstyled. All right, if I save that, you'll see it will remove the padding. It'll also remove the bullet points. And then if you wanted an inline list, so basically if we wanted this to go in like a horizontal fashion, we could add a class here of list dash inline and save. Let's see, why didn't that work? Oh, we also need to add to the LIs. I forgot about that. We have to add list inline item. All right, so I'll just grab this and go like that and save, and now you can see that the list is inline and it goes across. All right, so that's going to be it for basic typography, guys. In the next section, we're going to take a look at text alignment and display classes.